Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Mukesh English. This is Mukesh Soni, your favorite YouTuber. Friends, in this video, we shall summarize a very interesting speech by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, famous Nigerian author. And the title of her speech is here, The Danger of a Single Story. The Danger of a Single Story. And this speech is in the syllabus of second semester BCom General English under Bangalore City University. So the introduction, The Danger of a Single Story is a powerful speech by the famous Nigerian author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. In this speech, the speaker discusses how hearing only one side of a story about a person, place, or culture can create harmful stereotypes and incomplete understandings. Adichie shares personal experiences from her childhood in Nigeria and her time in America to show how easily people can misunderstand each other when they rely on a single story. Through her speech, she urges us to seek out multiple perspectives, celebrate diversity, and recognize the richness and complexity of every human being. So generally what happens, we do not analyze all the aspects, all the both the coins of the story and or any of the news, and we always believe on the single persona or the single side of the story. This is what Adichie is going to analyze. He is going to say here that there's always a danger when you believe only the one aspect of the story. Now we should understand what is the meaning of single story. What is the meaning of single story? A single story means showing only one side of a person, one side of a place, and one side of a culture. When we hear only one story repeatedly, it becomes the only image we have about that person or that place. It limits single story, it limits our understanding, it builds stereotypes and ignores the complexity. A single story is not always a lie, but it is dangerously incomplete. Chimamanda's main message in her speech is we must always seek multiple stories to get the full truth about people and about all the places. So, to begin with, I have divided the speech, Chimamanda's speech, in the different themes. So, according to the themes, you'll get the analysis, you'll get the summary of the complete speech here. So let's begin it. The first theme is here Chimamanda's early life, exposure to Western books. Chimamanda grew up in Suka, that is in Nigeria. She loved reading from her young age, but the books were available to her were British and American authors' books, which is generally written by the white authors. So she absorbed these foreign realities so much that she started writing at the age of 7. So when did she start writing? At the age of 7, and that time she wrote about snow, even though she had never seen snow, and she created characters who drank ginger beer, ate apples, loved nature, the way British kids do. So she had a lot of influence of the British writers, and she brought those influence and these influence in her writing too. But what's the reality? Her own real life with hot weather, mangoes, African culture never appeared in her stories. She had never brought her real life situation, what happens in Nigeria, like hot weather, mangoes in the African culture, which was never exposed in her stories because she had only read foreign stories, so she thought stories had to be about white people living foreign lives. So, what lesson we gather here, what realization we gather here, that when we are exposed to only one kind of stories, so what do? We start believing that it is the only reality. So, that's what Chimamanda also did. She read only the British authors, American authors' stories, and she always used to write only keeping in mind those stories. She never brought her own life, her own real life about the Nigerian culture, etc. She never exposed it, she never brought it. Second theme of the speech we find here, impact of discovering African writers. Now, later, Chimamanda read the books written by African authors like Chinua Achebe, his famous work Things Fall Apart, Camera Lay, her famous book The African Child. And after reading these African writers, these books were became a lot of revolutionary for her. These books brought the revolutionary thought, and they showed African people living African lives. So these books showed that how the African peoples are living their lives, and these books also proved that people like her could exist in the books also. Next theme, what do we feel here? She felt a huge sense of validation where her culture also mattered a lot. So, what's the learning experience? So, when multiple stories exist, people find mirrors where they can see themselves. Next theme we find here, the story of Fide, the danger of knowing only one thing about a person. Now, who is Fide here? Chimamanda's family employed a houseboy, and that houseboy's name is here Fide. What Chimamanda's mother always told her that Fide's family is poor. Fide's family is poor. So, in her mind, Fid and his family became nothing more than poor people because she always heard about Fid that he's very poor boy, poor people, his family is poor. So that thought got printed in the mind of Chimamanda. So what happens one day? Chimamanda's family visited Fitz village. What Chimamanda saw, she saw that Fitz family made beautiful hand-woven baskets. She was surprised to see that this family, being a poor family, is doing such a skill-based job. That is a hand-woven baskets, beautiful one. So what did she realize? She says, I had only one story about them, poverty, and it made me blind to the skills, dignity, and creativity. I'm telling you, it's very interesting statement. So generally, we consider poor people as a poor people only. We never observe the talent, the kind of skill sets they have, and because of the poverty, we become blind. So same thing happened to her. So what's a big lesson we learn here? When we see people through one lens, we rob them of their full humanity. The next theme we find in her speech, her experience in the US, and she became the victim of a single story. Chimamanda went to America for university education, and her American roommates were shocked to meet her. The roommates were expecting Chimamanda to speak broken English, to listen to tribal music, and be unfamiliar with the modern technology. That was these American students, her roommates. She expected that she should speak broken English, she should listen only to tribal music, and she should not be exposed to the modern technology. Chimamanda spoke, but what's the reality? Chimamanda spoke perfect English. She starts listening to Mariah Carey, the famous American singer, and she was as modern as any other student in the American university. So, why was the roommate surprised? Because her roommate had grown up seeing only the negative news about Africa. What's the negative news? Africa is a place of wars, poverty, backwardness, because they were listening only to one single side of Africa. When they saw Chimamanda speaking perfect English, listening to American songs, and using the technology efficiently, they were surprised because they were exposed to only to the negative news about Africa, that Africa is a place of war, Africa is a place of poverty, Africa is place of backwardness. And what happened? If a single negative story, excuse me, if a single negative story about a whole continent is repeated again and again, again and again, people will believe it about questioning. They'll believe about questioning. Like many people, they say Rajasthan mein pani nahi. I say there's a lot of water in Rajasthan. You go there, you'll find people serve water during the summer season on the railway station, especially on the main places. They put the matkas for the people from the railway station from all other places. They serve water during the hot summer season. So it's a single side story about Rajasthan. People say it's a desert area, no pani, no water. So that's what, because people are not exposed to that place. Just an example, nothing much connected to Chimamanda's speech. Now, the next theme, how power creates, spreads single stories, right? What's the influence of power to bring up the single stories, the single face of the coin? Chimamanda says here the stronger group, who are the stronger group? Who has more money, who has the media control, who has a political power, the stronger group gets to tell their version of the story. This is a stronger group which is going to escalate such kind of single stories, the one side, the one version of the story. For example, if Europe tells only the story of Africa's wars and the diseases, they ignore Africa's history of civilizations, art, and innovation. Because Europe has the power, Europe is a very powerful, has a lot of power across the world, and its media is also well exposed across the world, right? Moreover, the money also plays an important role. The whole world will take Africa a place of wars, Africa a place filled with disease, instead of knowing Africa's history of civilization, Africa's art, Africa's innovation will not be exposed. So the power structures decide whose stories are told loudly and whose stories are silenced. So Chimamanda says very bluntly how they are old, who tells them? When they are told, how many stories are told? All these depend on power, money, the political agenda, right? The next theme in her speech we find here, Chimamanda herself believed a single story. About whom? About Mexicans. How? After living in the US, Chimamanda Adichie realized she had developed her own prejudice. She believed the media's single story of Mexicans. What's the single story of Mexicans? That Mexicans were all illegal immigrants. Mexicans were poor, Mexicans were criminals. So this single side story of Mexicans got printed in the mind of Chimamanda. When she visited Mexico, she saw friendly, hardworking, and very proud people. She was shocked to see the reality of Mexicans. Then she was deeply ashamed because she started to believe on the single side of Mexican stories about Mexico. She realized how easy it is to fall into the trap of single stories, even for people who themselves have been misrepresented. Anyone can unknowingly accept stereotypes unless they actively seek more stories. So, next we find here stereotypes. The danger lies not in falsehood, but in the incompleteness. Remember, danger does not lie in the falsehood. Danger always lie in the incompleteness. When you get the incomplete news, you'll be always in the confusion state. Believe or not, mano ya na mano. Stereotypes are partial truths. For example, some Africans are poor, but that's not all Africans are poor. When somebody says some Africans are poor, that does not mean that all Africans are poor. If we only hear about African poverty, we miss the stories of innovation, like mobile banking in Kenya. We miss the stories of literature, Chinua Achebe, Adichie herself is a brilliant example of literature. We miss the stories of joy, success, creativity. If we keep on talking and hearing about African poverty, we'll be missing such stories about Africa. That's what Chimamanda says here. So the problem with the stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story, right? So the importance of many stories, a kind of paradise. Chimamanda argues that telling many stories restore dignity. So what should we do? We should listen to many multiple stories about a place, because the multiple stories are going to restore the dignity. The multiple stories celebrate diversity. Telling multiple stories breaks down the power imbalance. And Chimamanda dreams of a world. What kind of world she dreams? She dreams of a world where many different stories exist side by side. She dreams of a world where people see each other as complex, full human beings, not as simple stereotypes. Such kind of world she is dreaming here in her speech. She says, when we reject the single story, when we realize that there is never a single story about any place, we regain a kind of paradise. So when we restore the paradise, when we reject the single story, when we realize that there is never a single story about any place, that moment we are going to restore the paradise. That moment we are going to restore the value of the place, the value of the country, the value of the people. So hence we can say that Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's speech, The Danger of a Single Story, is a warning against oversimplification. It's a celebration of the richness of different cultures, lives, and experiences. It challenges us to always ask for more stories, not to settle for just one story, not to believe only one story. Always listen to the multiple stories, multiple facets, multiple dimensions of any place, culture, or people. Then judge, then analyze. Otherwise, you will become the victim of the danger of a single story. So, friends, this is how I have tried to simplify the danger of a single story by the famous Nigerian author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This story is in the syllabus of second semester BCom General English under BCU. There's a Bangalore City University. For more videos, keep watching. Look at the playlist. See in the description box, and moreover, stay in tune. Stay connected with my channel. Very shortly, you'll be getting model question. You'll be getting model question paper, the last minute revision, which I generally do before the one day of the examination. So subscribe the channel, like this video, write your comments, how do you feel it, and write about the single phase of any of the story. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.